You ever wonder what would happen if you could have literally everything you ever wanted? Well, today we're diving into a story from the 16th century that asks that exact question. And let me tell you, the answer is not what you think. Let's get into it. So this whole story really forces us to ask ourselves, what's the real price tag on getting everything you've ever dreamed of? We're going to explore this through the tragic tale of a man named Bartholdius. Now, to really get this story, first we have to understand who Bartholdius made his deal with. This wasn't just some run-of-the-mill demon. No, the bad guy here is more like a force, an idea. They call him Mammon, the actual embodiment of greed itself. What's so interesting is that Mammon isn't just about, piling up gold coins. The source material calls him the spirit of more. Think about that. It's this insatiable hunger that just corrupts you from the inside out. It's like that feeling today of always needing the newest phone, the better car. Mammon's whole game is to make the world of things way more important than anything else. So how does he do it? Well, Mammon's number one weapon is deception, what the story calls the glittering illusion. He sells you this idea that wealth will solve all your problems, that your value as a person is tied to what you own. He even disguises greed as something virtuous, like ambition or hard work. He'll promise you security, but as we're about to see, all he really delivers is a constant nagging fear that you're going to lose it all. Okay, so let's get into our case study here and see how this all plays out. We're moving from the big idea of Mammon to the actual story of the guy who shook his hand, a moneylender named Bartholdius of Prosperitas. We're in the 16th century in a city with the very ironic name of Prosperitas. And our guy, Bartholdius, is already rich, but the source says his heart is a dry well. He's just consumed by this ambition that's so big, so all-encompassing that the normal ways of making money just aren't enough anymore. And that's when he turns to the forbidden arts. And this right here is the deal. For 24 years, Bartholdius gets his almost magical power to create wealth out of thin air. But just look at the price. It's so cryptic, kind of poetic, and just absolutely bone-chilling. Mammon tells him, "You shall be the coin that is never spent, and the vault that never opens." But of course, blinded by all that glitter, Bartholdius says yes. All right, so the deal is done. And pretty much right away, the consequences start to ripple outwards. This incredible power doesn't bring any real joy. In fact, the story describes it as a slow poison that starts to infect not just Bartholdius, but his entire city. Let's start with the man himself, with the internal rot. This is really about what happens to a person when their humanity gets chipped away, piece by piece, by an obsession with just having more. This slide just lays it out so perfectly. Take a look at these details right from the source. First, he totally forgets the simple pleasure of eating bread because he can only think about its market value. Then, his own kids, they become investments. His friends become liabilities. See what's happening? He's not a person anymore. He's just an accumulator. It gets so bad that as his city starts to fall apart because of him, all he feels is a frantic, gnawing need to own the rubble. But this poison doesn't stop with Bartholdius. Oh no, as he becomes the king's creditor and the master of markets, his own personal corruption just radiates outward, infecting the entire social fabric of Prosperitas. The whole system just starts to collapse. The king stops seeing people and just sees taxable heads. The church starts to think righteousness is measured by how much money you donate. The justice system, it becomes a joke, a spider's web that only catches the poor. And on a personal level, trust just evaporates. Neighbors who used to help each other now build walls. It's a critical point. One man's deal with greed ends up hollowing out an entire civilization from the inside. But here's the thing about a 24-year pact. It has a deadline. As the end of the term gets closer and closer, this sense of dread starts to creep in. The bill is about to come due. You can really feel the tension building with this timeline. For 23 years, Bartholdius gets to live in his world of plenty, a world that was all built on a lie. But then, year 24 hits, and with it comes the final night and the inevitable collection. So on that last night, Bartholdius panics and runs to his vault, thinking that his literal mountains of gold can somehow save him. But Mammon shows up, and he's no longer a figure of light. Now, he's a colossus of molten slag. And he delivers this absolutely chilling line, turning Bartholdius' entire life's work right back on him. His end isn't just death. It's this horrifying transformation. The very wealth that he thought would protect him becomes the weapon of his doom. The gold doesn't burn him, it consumes him. It pours over him, encases him, silences him, and turns him into a solid gold statue. He literally becomes the treasure he worshipped, fulfilling that cryptic promise of being the coin that is never spent. The story doesn't quite end there with his personal demise. The final act ties the fate of the man directly to the fate of his city, leaving behind this powerful, if buried, legacy. On that very same night, the city falls. The source is very clear that the fire was ignited by the resentment of the hungry, a direct consequence of the inequality and rot that Bartholdus created. The city built on greed is consumed by it, and that golden statue, the perfect monument to that greed, is buried deep beneath the ruins. The original story ends with this very direct moral, a powerful warning that really sums up the whole tale. It's the ultimate question of value, right? For what is a man profited if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? What is really worth having? And that really just leaves us with one final thought. I mean, sure, this is a fable from the 16th century, but that theme is absolutely timeless. So the real question for us is, in a world that constantly celebrates accumulation, ambition, and that spirit of more, how do we recognize those same whispers of Mammon today? Is it in the pressure for the constant hustle, the endless ads telling us we're not enough without this or that? Or maybe it's in the way we sometimes value our possessions over our people,